What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani. We have right here via Zoom a very special guest. He's one half of the hottest tag team in the business today, going for the gold at AEW Grand Slam. We are talking to the incredibly talented, the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens. Anthony, thank you so much for the time. How's everything going?
It's pretty good. Just had a good workout here in beautiful LA, and now I'm here with you, and let's chat.
Hell yeah. Let's chat. I should also say New Jersey's own Anthony Bowens. So nice to have kind of a home state guy with me here.
Yeah, I miss Jersey. A lot of these places that we go to, a lot shuts down early in the day, and I kind of miss being at home and being able to get up at like 1 a.m., go to a diner and get really good food and feel good about myself afterwards. I miss it.
And how hard is it to be on the road and not get a good bagel or a good slice of pizza unless you're in the New York, New Jersey area?
Like, it's great here. The weather is beautiful, but I had a bacon, egg, and cheese on just on a plain bagel the other day, and I almost vomited because the bagel was so bad. The bread and the Italian food in Northeast, you can't beat it.
Definitely not. And hey, man, you can't beat the momentum that the Acclaimed has right now. Let's talk about the match everybody was talking about All Out Weekend, which, of course, is the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory. Keith Lee, Swerve. You guys had one hell of a match. To quote you on your own Instagram, you said you guys stole the show. I concur. Were you shocked at the reaction? Not so much the work you put in the ring, but just from the fans and just from the fans watching worldwide?
We knew that we had a lot of support going into the pay-per-view, and we knew this would probably be the sleeper match of the pay-per-view, and it ended up exceeding, I guess, everyone's expectations. And it's a good lesson for a lot of the fans who like to whine and complain about things, because all I heard throughout the entire week was, oh, there's no build to this. It's going to suck. We're professionals. Allow us to do our job, and we did it really, really well. And we expected, again, like we expect a really good reaction, but that moment when they started chanting, "Oh, Scissor Me Daddy," I think if you watch the match, even Swerve kind of got caught off guard too. We both were like, "Oh," and then I was like, "Oh, I got to beat this guy up again." So there was a moment in that match where it's like, wow, this is insane. I have a lot of goals and aspirations, and Max too. We both want to be successful in the professional wrestling business, and we push each other to get to this point. But if you said it would happen within 2 years of being here, of 2 years of being a tag team in general, it's crazy.
Where did Scissor Me come from?
So the scissor itself there was a time in it was a dark taping way back in the pandemic era where I hit my pose with the A, and Caster came up behind me and he scissored me, and there was a camera shot of it where I'm kind of like, what the hell? Like, what did you just do? And back then I was more on the safe side with things. Caster loved to push buttons. I was kind of like, I don't want to get fired. I'm new here. Like, I don't want to do anything that's like weird. And I made the face, and then eventually they told us to stop doing it. And then for some reason, we just started doing it again. And I kind of had this rebellious attitude too, where I was like, screw it, let's just keep doing it. And I don't remember what match it was, but I remember laying on the floor and then looking up, and the entire first row had their hands over the barricade and they're yelling, "Scissor Me, Bowens." And I was like, we're kind of onto something. And we leaned into it. It just started becoming more and more of a thing. And then we added Billy to the equation. And one particular live Rampage, I was sitting in Gorilla. I was in my wheelchair at the time when I was injured, and we were minutes from going out, and it just popped into my head because Austin Gunn kept calling his father Daddy. It's like, it'd be kind of funny if I said "Scissor Me Daddy Ass" live on television. Like, I'm just gonna go out and say it. I went out and I said it and came back, and the internet blew up, and now it's turned into the #1 selling t-shirt.
That is incredible, right? Billy Gunn, I saw a tweet that I think you retweeted that said something along the lines of, back in the day when Billy Gunn was with D-Generation X, they had a t-shirt that would get you kicked out of school. And now all these years later, he has another t-shirt that could get you kicked out of school.
I'm proud of it.
Oh, man. And you had mentioned at the top of this interview that you just got back from a workout. You're in fantastic shape, but you did hit a bit of a rough patch at times with injury. So how does it feel now to come out of that other side, and also for AEW to have the faith in you to keep you on TV while you were rehabbing?
It feels great. We have a boss that trusts us, that allows us to give him ideas, and making sure that I stayed on television and having a good storyline to sink our teeth into was one of them. And he allowed us to do that with the Ass Boys and Billy. As far as the injuries go, I was hurt maybe once or twice on the independents. in my 8-year span. I get signed and then bang, the 2 injuries come. So I hate having a label being injury prone because I'm not, just 2, I guess, unfortunate events, but they ended up being both really positive. I'm very big with taking negatives and turning them into positives. And if I didn't get hurt, we wouldn't have went into the storyline with Billy, and this whole explosion either may not have happened or would have happened, way down the road. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Definitely does. And I got to ask you about the story that everybody's been talking about. So much controversy. And of course, obviously, I'm talking about when Swerve interrupted the Acclaimed's entrance in Buffalo. So controversial, trending on Twitter. How'd you feel about it? And how do you plan on responding to that?
Well, we're going to beat his ass. That's as simple as that. You don't cut off Platinum Max's rap. Everybody in that arena and online and watching at home, they want to see Max rap every single week because you never know what he's going to say. He is absolutely insane. And that's the best part of it. The Acclaimed are must-watch television every single week because you never know what's going to happen, especially on live TV.
From what I understand, you were a standout baseball player, and you could have maybe continued your baseball career, but opted to go into pro wrestling. Obviously, it's worked out for you up to this point, but when you were first told, hey, maybe you should try this wrestling thing, what was your first impression?
So, I played baseball from Little League all the way through college. I played Division I at Seton Hall University in New Jersey, and then I transferred over to Montclair State University, also in New Jersey, Montclair, obviously. And it got to the point where I kind of fell out of love I fell out of love in baseball, and I was also like playing through an injury, at bad tendonitis. I was in pain every single day. I wasn't having a good time. So I stopped playing. And there was this like patch of time during the day where I was used to being on the field or doing something. And it was really boring, to be honest with you. I had nothing to do. So I needed something creative. I needed something athletic to do. And I've always loved professional wrestling. Never really gave it a thought until my friends and I, before one of the hurricanes, where everybody was like stuck indoors, we were bored and they're like, let's make a wrestling video. And my friends aren't, just one of my friends is kind of like a wrestling fan. The rest were kind of like, hey, let's just have some fun. And we made this like little YouTube mini series that ended up catching on locally. People loved it. So we made more. And the feedback I kept getting from it was, you kind of look like a trained pro wrestler already. You should probably do it. And that kind of first planted the seed. And then eventually, I think a year after that, I ran into Santino Marella at my local gym in Jersey. And I took a picture of him. And as I was walking away, he stopped me in character still. He had an Italian accent. And he was like, hey, like you look like a pro wrestler. Have you ever thought about becoming one? I was like, well, yeah, like I just don't know where to go. Pulls out his phone. He gives me the number to Pat Buck, who is the owner and trainer at Creative Pro Wrestling Academy, or Wrestle Pro. At the time, it was Pro Wrestling Syndicate. And current AEW producer. He gave me the number to Pat. I called him and I started training the next week.
Wow. And Pat Buck, I feel like, is really one of the unsung heroes when it comes to wrestling trainers to an extent. Nothing against other wrestling trainers and other wrestling companies. We hear a lot about the West Coast of Japan and everything else. But I mean, Pat Buck, and alongside, Kevin McDonald and a few other guys, has been really quietly running like a hell of a promotion. First, it was Pro Wrestling Syndicate. Now, Wrestle Pro and Creator Pro. I mean, he's not just trained you, but of course, Max Caster, Chris Statlander, some guy named MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Pretty damn good track record. He had a lot of high marks when he was in WWE as a producer. Now, of course, with AEW. What have you learned the most from Pat Buck?
I mean, I learned almost everything from Pat Buck. Pat's like a walking wrestling encyclopedia. So he taught me almost everything. I learned tag team wrestling from Brian Myers. And then I learned how to be aggressive and like really, really just, lay stuff in and work an audience from Dan Moff. So I had and then other influences from like Mario Boccara, the Heavenly Bodies, Justin and Mark Carino, Falaba. So many different influences, but Pat was the main guy.
Really talented guys to learn from, for sure. Now, I was browsing around your IMDb a little bit, and of course, most of it is pro wrestling, but I saw you've also done some acting, and you also did some logging for a World Series documentary as well. So prior to getting into pro wrestling, or to really getting that big break with AEW, did you think about getting into TV and film in some capacity?
So a lot of the TV film stuff happened while I was a professional wrestler. So I had a tryout with NXT in 2015, and the feedback I got for them was, hey, you have 4 of the 5 things we need to be a superstar. You're just kind of lacking personality, which, was fair back then because I was didn't have a character. I was bland. I was just like a blue chip athlete. I was still in the closet, so I had these like walls up around me subconsciously. I wasn't able to be myself. So I get it, but it lit a fire under me and that's actually where the 5-tool player came from. A little fire under me that, I wanted to prove these guys wrong. So I went out and I started taking acting classes, sketch comedy classes. I ended up landing an agent in New York. So I've done like 8 national commercials since then: Lunchables, Domino's Pizza, Optimum Online. It's a bunch of those different things. I did a live improv shows. I did a live sketch comedy show. I landed 2 magazine covers. So I just really tried to do everything I could to make myself a better performer. And now that my boyfriend and I are out in LA, we're trying to grow our YouTube channel that we started back in 2016, which we've gotten up to like 215,000 subs. And I'd love to dive into some like TV and film to lay the foundation for after pro wrestling, because I'd like to do this until I'm very old or I can't physically do it anymore. So then I can, still be in front of the camera in a different creative capacity.
That's fantastic, man. And obviously, I'm sure it helps on camera, right? And with your screen presence and everything.
Oh, yeah. I think the YouTube was the biggest help for that, because it forced you to be in front of a camera. It's very awkward, like when you first start doing it, because you're just sitting there in front of a camera. There's no immediate reaction from anything, and it's just you're talking to nothingness. And that helped me become a lot more comfortable even doing stuff like this, because there was a time where I would had trouble speaking in general. So just being comfortable speaking in front of a camera, that helped a lot.
And you mentioned too your boyfriend, and at the time when you first tried out for WWE, you hadn't come out yet. You are out. You are unapologetically you. It's a beautiful story covered by a lot of different outlets and everything. And it's kind of crazy how these days it's just accepted. Like, hey, Max, Anthony, platonic friends. It's great. There's no BS. There's no exploitation. There's none of that. Whereas back in the day with Chris Canyon, he was kind of ostracized, and you didn't see a lot of athletes, just male athletes, I should say, in general, coming out. So how's the reception been for you with AEW fans and backstage, allowing you to just kind of be you?
It's great. And that was one of the things that attracted me to coming to AEW. Was when I came here as an extra before I was signed. I saw people like Sonny Kiss and Nyla Rose just walking around being themselves without judgment, and people being inclusive with them. And there was no fear for them at all to be themselves. And that was super important to me for wherever I would land at the time. So there's never a time where I'm at work or I'm consciously thinking about it. It's something that's openly celebrated. It's, I bring it up openly in front of my friends and coworkers. So we've come a long way in terms of inclusiveness in locker rooms and such. Fans from time to time, we've still got work to do, but it's been overwhelmingly positive. And I take that responsibility of being an out athlete very seriously, because I'd like to show that, you can be a successful openly gay professional athlete without it being the center of attention, without being the center of focus. But at times it is important to bring it up, like for next week in particular. Max and I are going to fight for our lives in this match, and we also want to bring home gold. And if we do, I end up being AEW's first gay champion, which is something that I would be super proud of. So I'm going to have some extra inspiration, I guess, underneath me for that match.
Well said. Love that. And you mentioned AEW Grand Slam. Of course, AEW Grand Slam, September 21st, Arthur Ashe Stadium. The Acclaimed in a rematch against Swerve and Our Glory for the tag team titles. Hey, I think a lot of people think you get the job done. Knock on wood. We don't want to jinx you. Now, before we let you go, we always like to ask our guests some random and rapid fire questions just to get to know them better. Are you ready?
Sure. Favorite
late night snack or cheat meal?
Oh, God. Last night I had a whole bowl of watermelon, but I also had Gertrude Hawk chocolate, which is it's like a local chocolate, what do you call it? Factory. And in the Northeast, it's based in Pennsylvania. It's my favorite chocolate in the world.
What's your workout regimen like?
I work out 4 to 5 times a week for at least an hour and a half. 3 of those times I make sure there's a very high intensity cardio at the end. Other than that, there's nothing really specific. I kind of fluctuate it based upon how I'm feeling.
What was your first impression of Max Caster?
I didn't know him. I had no idea. I've only heard like stuff through the grapevine, through Creative Pro. He's definitely somebody who you need to get to know, and I think he's fantastic. He's somebody that at this point I can't. It'd be weird if I wasn't speaking to him every day. He's become a brother to me. I think he's funny. If he can get past his sarcasm, I think he's a wonderful person to be around. I think you would enjoy him too.
I got to say, shout out to Max Caster for having that John Cena moment when he picked up Keith Lee at All Out. That was That was nuts.
He is very, very strong. He busts his ass in the gym. Cena is a big supporter of the Acclaimed. He's a big supporter of Caster. He's, stated openly. He keeps posting about it on Instagram, which is pretty cool. So I'm glad that Caster is getting that affirmation, especially since in the beginning we had the entire internet going, "Oh, you're just a John Cena ripoff, blah, 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 blah." And one, we're not. And two, to see Cena kind of clear all those negative comments away just by giving him affirmation like that. I think that's super cool.
Great to see the Acclaim getting some acclaim, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from Coach Gunn?
I don't want to bring that up like in an interview setting because it's kind of inside baseball a bit in terms of wrestling. But I've learned a lot from him. He's been such a big help. Just having his presence there to kind of pick his brain for psychology. He is one of the best tag team wrestlers there ever was. So having him to lean on is pretty cool.
So John Cena loves the Acclaimed. Billy Gunn obviously loves the Acclaimed. Another man who unexpectedly loved the Acclaimed, Jim Ross. Every time you guys come out, he's always jamming. He's always like, listen, like he's really into it. How does it feel to have the greatest announcer of all time give you that kind of endorsement?
You're doing something right when you have guys like JR, who's like really, really into you. He's been super supportive on air, off air. It's not just a catchphrase when I yell it and almost lose my voice every single week. Everyone loves the Acclaimed. It's a way of life. It's a fact of life at this point.
What's the best piece of advice you give for success?
Never take no for an answer, and always be persistent but patient. I always say persistence and patience. A lot of times people, they have big goals, they have big dreams, they have big aspirations, but they lack the patience to achieve it. They kind of want things right now. Hey, I worked hard for a year. Why am I not in this position? Sometimes it's going to take 2 years. Sometimes it's going to take 10 years. Sometimes, you might get lucky and it might be an overnight TikTok sensation. You just don't know, but you got to be willing to put in the effort from the beginning all the way to the end. If you start letting up on the gas, you're only hurting yourself. So just floor it and just overall, just continue to believe in yourself.
Great advice. Love that. And why should fans check out AEW Grand Slam?
I mean, it's the biggest Dynamite of the year. Arthur Ashe Stadium. We're going to crown a new AEW world champion. We have Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed 2. There's so much jam-packed action in AEW. I think the shows tend to have everything from everybody, whether you like hardcore, whether you like technical wrestling, whether you like humor, whether you're a fan of just anything. It's all a huge, I guess, melting pot of professional wrestling, and you get to see it for free live on television on TBS, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bonus question. Is there anything you wish I asked you in this interview?
Is there anything you would? No. What's my social media handles? I don't know.
I was going to ask that next. Anything random that you'd like us to know about you?
I'm writing a book. It's the first time I've said that openly. I'm about 45,000 words in, and I hope to have that out in the next few years or so. So I like to dip my toes in every avenue that I can. And, I've read a lot of wrestling books growing up. So now that I'm achieving success and I think I have a story to tell that would resonate with people, I want to put that out there eventually. So that's a goal of mine.
That's amazing. I wish you the very best in that. And that's autobiography, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll definitely be on the lookout for that. And Anthony, of course, we know about AEW Grand Slam, September 21st, live on TBS, and tickets still on sale now. But where can we find you online, and where else can we find you next?
You can find me at Bowens_official on Twitter and Instagram. If you like slapstick comedy, you like to see me outside of the Acclaimed sphere, head to Michael and Anthony, our YouTube channel. We have a ton of different videos, sketch comedy, impressions, parodies. It's a good time. So go check that out. And then again, make sure you watch AEW Dynamite Grand Slam next week, live on television, September 21st, New York City, 8 p.m. But just remember that everyone loves the Acclaimed.
Scissor me, brother. Thank you so much for the time.